Everyone is an artist, no matter what they practice. And for Liz Daley, art is the backdrop for her life. I wanted to get a look into this backdrop, so we sat down to have a little conversation.
Yeah, let's do this. Can you tell me who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Liz Daley. I'm from Owatonna, Minnesota. I moved to Chicago 3 years ago now, almost 3 years, and I'm an artist.
Talk to me about your art.
I started really getting into art when I was maybe 13 or 14. I remember I used to sit in my room and listen to music and paint and draw, and it was just like a really good release of emotion for me. And I think I really realized I had a passion for it at that point in my life.
And how has that passion transferred into your adult life?
It's definitely harder now because you have school, you have work, you have all these other things, obligations and responsibilities. But I still find time to make art because it's what makes me happy.
And what in particular about art makes you happy? Is it just the ability to express yourself? Is it the feeling of completing a piece? What is it?
I think it's all of that, as well as I do feel like I was put on this earth to create, and the process of creating something is just really satisfying for me. It also just kind of slows down my thoughts, helps me relax, helps me focus.
Can you give me an example of a time where you've had like kind of fast thoughts and art just kind of help you slow it down?
Maybe not like a particular instance, but a lot of times, growing up, when I did feel overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, because I do struggle with a lot of those things, it was definitely art that I leaned on to kind of comfort me, make me feel better. Yeah.
You've got a lot of like very deep art in this room. I'm seeing tears. I'm seeing pieces about self-expression and who you are. Can you talk to me a little bit about how your expression plays into your art in particular?
I think I've always made art that is an expression of myself. A lot of the girls that I do in my pieces are like self-portraits or similar to me, because I kind of like making like a cartoon persona of myself. It's kind of fun, but it does help me get those feelings out about, what's going on in my head. And especially, everyone's had a lot of struggles, but I've had quite a few struggles within the last decade or so. And I feel like putting that on paper is a release, honestly. Just kind of gets it out of my head and onto the paper and helps you forget about things that are tough,
It's a way of, not of like coping with life, but kind of working with it, because you can't just get rid of your experiences. They're always going to be a part of you, but being able to kind of get rid of them per se in a piece of paper and just let it, like you said, release, I feel like that's something that's special.
Definitely special, yeah. And then you get to, I have a lot of it up, obviously, so looking back on it, it's kind of like, oh, I remember when I did that, I was feeling this way, and I remember why I made that piece. It's because I was struggling with this particular thing. And some of my pieces actually touch on multiple areas of struggle. I think that's kind of where I lean to. But of course, I use a lot of bright colors and things that don't necessarily reflect feelings. It's more so the imagery that I choose that kind of shows how I'm really feeling.
And can you talk to me about a little bit of that imagery? We've got it all around us.
Sure. Still. I think a lot of it has to do with societal standards, beauty standards, negative self-view. I've had low self-esteem for a lot of my life, and I feel like a lot of my art reflects the opposite of that. It kind of increases the self-esteem, but it shows emotion. I do have a lot of like tears and other pieces that show the reality of those emotions, but in a more positive light since they're so brightly colored. And
I feel like it's kind of bittersweet in a way.
It's like two sides.
Yeah, because there's an inherent beauty of just like, emotion and struggle and things like that. But at the same time you struggle. You know, it's hard, but you come through it. Is that a feeling that you feel like is expressed through your work? Or?
Definitely, yeah. And I kind of like, it's kind of like some songs, they sound really happy, but the lyrics are so depressing. I feel like it's that same sort of feeling with my art. You know, they look really bright and colorful and fun, but the real meaning behind it is a lot deeper.
And is that something that you feel is inherent of emotions?
Yeah, and I think it also reflects trying to change. You know, I've been through therapy and trying to cope with things like childhood trauma and past experiences. I think that it shows how resilient I am and how I'm trying to paint my life in a positive light, despite all the struggles I've been through.
I love that you're taking the things that, you know, hurt you, because childhood trauma is not easy. You know, that stuff affects you for life.
Yeah.
And I love that you're taking it and turning it into something positive.
Sure, thank you.
Of course. This last question I got for you: if you were to give advice to any, you know, fellow artists like you who are dealing with struggles and expressing themselves with their art through those struggles, what would you say to them?
Go for it. You know, don't be afraid to just start. I feel like a lot of people, when they begin doing art, the hardest part is that blank piece of paper sitting in front of you, and you don't know where to get started. And I think what I've learned is it's okay to just let yourself create. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your favorite piece of art ever, but I really do believe in emotion influencing your whatever work you're creating. And you know, you might go along and realize you want to try something different with it, or maybe you draw a shape and you're like, oh, that kind of looks like this, I'm going to turn it into that, you know. One of my favorite art teachers always said, you know, don't think, just start, just do it. So that would probably be my biggest piece of advice, is to just go for it and don't let that blank piece of paper scare you.
Perfect.